Hello my friends, welcome to my channel, Lindy's Magpie Reads. I'm Lindy, I read a lot and I like to talk about books, so if you like books too, you're in the right place. It's starting to be spring here in Edmonton, so I'm filming outside. It's a bit early for very much to be happening in the garden yet, but I will include a clip of the first flowers that are coming up. Stick around to the end to see that. I've read 5 books since my last video, so that's what I'm going to tell you about today. 4 of these books are queer. 3 of them are by trans authors. It is trans girl April still. Kevvie of Say Kevvie and Willow of Books and Bow have been hosting this readathon, encouraging everyone to read books by trans authors. Their channel information will be linked down below, and any other booktubers that I mention, I will also link their information down below if I forget to say that. First up, I'm going to tell you about an audiobook. Bronze Drum. It's by Phong Nguyen. It's a Vietnamese American. I listened to the audiobook read by Quyen Ngo, who obviously knows how to pronounce Vietnamese words, and even every time she referred to the Han Chinese colonists, because this book is set way back in the year 30 CE, so about 2,000 years ago in what's now Vietnam. The Viet people were under the unjust rule of the Han Chinese. That rising tone, I heard it every time it came up in the book, Han. I love that. The Viet people were being forced to follow Chinese cultural customs of marriage and the patriarchal Confucius religion, and they were subject to unfair taxation. And this story is based on a true event. 2 daughters of a Viet lord, the Trung sisters, rose up with an army of 80,000 women, overthrew their Chinese overlords. It's an adventure story with a lot of battle scenes and a lot of Vietnamese aphorisms that flavor the language of the story as well. The bronze drums that are mentioned in the title are an important aspect of Vietnamese culture that I had no idea about. I found this a really engaging story, and if you're looking for historical fiction set in Asia, I do recommend it. Next up is a couple of DNFs. So I picked up Alison Rumfitt's Tell Me I'm Worthless with trepidation. It's a horror story, a haunted house story with trans and queer characters in it. And I listened to a quarter of it, including a section that is from the viewpoint of the house. And I decided that it is just too gruesome to be listened to. This might be a book that could work for me in print, where it's not so visceral. I'm not sure. If you are up for it though, the audiobook narrator is Nicky Endres, and she's a trans feminine actor, and I did like her narration. I thought she did a good job with that, but the story itself it's just too violent and gruesome for me in the audio format. And my other DNF, I didn't last very long with, maybe just a few pages, and that is Pod by Laline Paull. It's about lesbian dolphins. I could tell almost immediately that it wasn't for me. But that does lead me to a book that I did read and enjoy very much, and that is Queer Ducks and Other Animals, The Natural World of Animal Sexuality. It's by Eliot Schrefer, and it's got illustrations by Jules Zuckerberg. They're cartoon illustrations that are just adorable. The book is intended for a teen audience, certainly enjoyable for adults too. But the conceit is that there's a gay-straight alliance of all these different animals meeting, and so there's a few cartoon panels of them talking. Here's an example of the illustrations that start each chapter. So the animals are sitting around introducing themselves in a GSA, and the Japanese macaques, these kind of monkeys, are known for lots of group sex with the females. Normally, I don't have to do this myself. Madison or Isabel or Emma does it. But they're not in this club, so, I mean, it's fine. I can groom myself. It's just better when they do it. I know you all wish you could sit with us in the cafeteria, but I'm sorry. It's a very select crowd, and there are only so many seats at that table, so we have to make choices. And then little illustrations continue throughout the text. The author says, if I get reincarnated, I want to be a Japanese macaque. If you want to have a really fun afternoon, look up videos of snow monkeys in hot baths online. I will link below to a good one because, yeah, they look like they enjoy themselves. There are chapters on doodlebugs and bonobos and fruit flies and bottlenose dolphins, deer, wrasfish, albatross, bulls, ducks and geese. And it's clear that queerness is a well-established and fundamental part of nature. There are short interviews that Schrefer did with researchers and scientists that are in between each chapter. Many of these scientists are queer, there's some that are people of color, so there's a lot of diversity there as well. And one of the things that they talk about is the attitude of the wider scientific community towards discoveries of same-sex interactions in the animal kingdom, and how a lot of that was repressed, or, you know, studies came out with names like, this was 1987, W.J. Tennant published an account of same-sex mating that he titled, "A Note on the Apparent Lowering of Moral Standards in Lepidoptera." Lepidoptera are butterflies. Okay, so one of the drawbacks of filming outside is dogs barking at squirrels. Oops. Anyway, I thought this was fantastic, very enjoyable, and also you could pick it up for Springathon, a nature writing readathon that is happening in the first 2 weeks of May. Heidi and Doris and Natalie are hosting that. More information down below. So, next up are 3 books by trans authors, starting with this picture book, Revenge of the Racoons by Vivek Shraya, with illustrations by Juliana Neufeld. This is a horror story for the preschool set. Well, preschool up until about grade 3, I would say. Here's the lovely end papers. Neufeld's art is nice and bright, neons against dark, and Shraya's text is rhyming and repetitive. We're furry, we scurry, we're wild, you worry. We'd come for your donuts, we'd come for your cash. There's the raccoon bandits. We get in your green bins, we poop on your grass. All of the pesky things that raccoons can do. The end message is about getting along with urban wildlife. We've come to make you share. There's great representation of people of diverse ethnic backgrounds and physical abilities. Lots of fun. This would work actually really well for a Halloween story time. Revenge of the Racoons. Next up is a book of poetry, Disintegrate, Dissociate. It's by Ariel Twist. Twist is a trans Cree woman from George Gordon First Nation in Saskatchewan, and she now resides in Halifax. She's a multidisciplinary artist and sex educator, and this is her debut poetry collection. In an interview, she herself describes it as raw and unfiltered. The poems are about grief and displacement and dating and sex, lots of sex, and relationships. There's a lot of power here. You can see she's won a couple of awards for this book already, and I really look forward to seeing what she has coming out next. And I'm going to read my favorite poem to you so you have an idea about her style. April is Poetry Month, after all. This one is called Manifest. I think I want us to be forever, 'cause the cultivation of this craft has asked of us to bear children we did not want, to crack open our chests for an audience, gazing into the veins of each other's worlds, wondering how this ecology survives. I like to think it lives in swamps, the bogs I grew up on, the wetlands that keep my lungs dripping in melodrama. How sometimes when I feel emotions, I can't tell if I'm dry or if I'm too full of a divisive or maybe indecisive way of being. That if this body is up for grabs, under scrutiny, fill it with flowers, gold and pearls, so maybe for once it will be seen as pretty. And if we must survive, which means we must write, I'll weave you into a poem, this art of quilting words. I think that's the closest thing I will ever feel to love. It's Disintegrate, Dissociate by Ariel Twist. And last up, this is the best of the five, a great big fat graphic memoir called The Third Person. It's by Emma Grove. I picked this up for Trans Girl April and also double duty People April that Elisabeth of Bouquins and Books and Roz of Scallydandling About the Books have been hosting through the month of April. And this book would also work for Mental Health May. That's coming up next month, because Emma writes about having dissociative identity disorder. She went to see a therapist because she needed this psychiatric approval in order to proceed with her gender transition. And most of this book covers the 6 months that she was seeing this one particular therapist, a trans man actually, and he was terrible. Whoa! He didn't believe her. There were times when he got so angry with her, he told her to just get out. Eventually, she does see a much better therapist, and things are going well for her. But I found this an absolute page turner, and I am going to show you a section to give you an idea of her art style, her ink line work, which is impeccable. She had three main parts to herself, and the therapist was trying to get to who the person was that was her core self. So the third person by Emma Grove, wow, outstanding. It's so fat, there's even room for a cartoon on the spine. So good. Wow, was I ever rooting for her, and I'm really glad things come out okay for her in the end in this memoir. So that's all I got to tell you about today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm gonna show you Joni's haircut. Here she is. She really wants to bark at those squirrels. It's a tough life being a dog. Leave me comments down below. Always love to hear from you, and I will see you again soon. Bye for now. These are striped squill, and they are the earliest flowers in my garden. They're such hardy, tiny little flowers, almost ghostly in appearance. And I love them so much because they are the first. So it's a sign that spring is coming.